Hi class, and today we're going to be looking at 10.06. Our title is Further Expanding and Factorising. And there is your LO to know how to expand triple brackets. So if you can copy that down, make sure you're underlining it and getting your date down. And then we'll move on to the retrieval task. So here's your retrieval task. If you can pause the video now and spend 10 minutes trying to complete these challenges. Okay, so here's your answers. Testing a fair few skills here. Checking that you know what prime number is. Checking that you know how to convert units. We've got some division in there as well. So make sure you're using your green pens to mark these. And ticking any ones that you've got correct. So here's the contents for this topic. First, we're going to be looking at expanding triple brackets for our first lesson. Then we're going to move on to algebraic fractions, adding, dividing, multiplying these, and completing the square. So first of all, let's have a look at the I do. So our success criteria at the bottom states that the first thing we've got to do is multiply out the first two brackets. So these two sets of brackets here. Now the FOIL method, this was new to me, but it's quite interesting. So we've got F stands for first. So we do 4x times by 3x. So the first terms in each bracket. Then the O, so the outer. So we go for the 4x times by the 1. See how they're both the outer terms in our brackets. Then we go for the inner. So we go 3 times by 3x. And then we go the last. So 3 times by the last in the second bracket, which is the 1. So as you can see at the bottom, the 4x must times by everything in the second bracket. And the 3 must times by everything in the second bracket. So you grind it out, we do 4x times by 3x, gives us 12x squared. 4x times by 1 gives us 4x. 3x times by 3 gives us the 9x here. And 3, positive 3 times by positive 1 just gives us 3. So now what we could do is we could tidy this up and collect our 4x and our 9x because they're like terms. But I haven't done that here. I've just left it exactly how it is and then multiplied out. So again, I've got my 12x squared times by 2 gives me 24x squared. My 12x squared times by x gives me 12x cubed. Then I've done the same with the 4. 4 times by 2 gives us 8x. 4 times by 4x times by x gives us 4x squared. Done the same with the 9. So we get 18x. 9x times by x, 9x squared. Then 3 finally times by everything. So 3 times by 2 gives us 6. 3 times by x gives us 3x. So now we have all these terms here. And what we need to do is we need to collect the like terms. So our like terms for starters, so let's start with our 24x squared. Oh, actually, in fact, let's start with x cubed because that's our largest term. So I've underlined them so that I know that I've used it. So I'd underline my 12x cubed. I'd see, is there any more x cubed terms? No, there aren't. So 12x cubed. Then now let's look at our x squareds. So we have x squared here. 24 of those. We have another plus 4 here. So we have 28. And then we have 9. So we have 37 in total. We then collect the x's. So we have 8x, 18x, it's 26x, and 3x gives us 29. And then finally, underline the 6, we have just the 6 left. So if you can pause the video now and try the we do. So here is your answer for the we do. Again, it's been simplified and the terms have been collected. Make sure you're collecting your terms and not just leaving it as it is here. So let's have a look at another one. So again, they want us to rewrite this in the form ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d. So again, we times the first two brackets. So x times by 3x, the first two terms, 3x squared. X times by 1, gives us x, they're the outer terms. 3 times by 3x gives us 9x. 3 times by 1 gives us 3. Now again, we could have collected these two terms here, made our life easier, and that would have been 10x. But I didn't want to confuse and put too many steps in just yet. So we times everything. Plus, it's a good habit. So 3x squared times by 2 gives us 6x squared. 3x squared times by x, 3x cubed, and so on. So we've got x times by 2, 2x, x times by x, x squared. And then once we have all of these terms, we then collect. So again, we've got 3 x's here, so we know that the biggest x to the power that we're going to have is x cubed. So let's try collecting the x cubes first. So we only have this 3 here, so that stays on its own. Then let's look at the x squareds. We have 6, positive 6, positive 1, and positive 9. So that gives us 16. We then move on to the next one, our next coefficient for x. So let's have a look. We have 2 here, 18 here, so that's 20, and 3 finally, so that's 23 lots of x. And then finally, underline that, we have our 6. So if you can pause the video now and try and complete the we do, you'll be given 2 minutes for this. So again, here is our answer. It's quite nice at the minute because all of our terms are all positive. But when we are collecting in future, we will have to remember to look at the sign before each term. Got to remember to keep that attached. So let's have a look at another we do now. We'll move through these quicker. So again, times the first term by the first term, the outer terms, then the inner terms, and then the last terms, FOIL. Once we've done that, here again, we've made the point that we have collected terms. So now that we have a negative coefficient, we have minus 1x, negative 1x, plus positive 3x. So in total, we have 2x. So now it's made things a little bit easier. We can do the x squared times by both terms, the 2x times by both terms, and then the negative 3 times by both terms. So we have negative 3 times by 2 gives us negative 6. Negative 3 times by 3x gives us negative 9x. Then we collect our terms. So we've got 3 lots of x cubed. We have 2 and 6, so 8 lots of x squared. We have 4 lots of x, positive 4 lots of x, and negative 9 lots of x. So we have negative 5x. And then finally, we have the negative 6. If you can pause the video now and give the we do a go for 2 minutes. And here is the answer for the we do. So again, a lot more negative coefficients now, a lot more negative terms. Make sure you've copied that down and corrected it if you got it wrong. Well done if you got it right. So now here's an interesting one. We've got x minus 1 squared. So we know that this x minus 1 squared, we know that when we square a term, we times it by itself. So all this is x minus 1, and then another bracket, x minus 1. So this is the exact same as we were doing before, except it's been written down in a different form. So again, we just times the first 2 brackets by one another. The first terms are times together to give x squared. The outer terms are times together to give minus x. The inner terms are times together to give minus x. And the outer terms, the last term, sorry, are times together to give minus 1 times minus 1 gives us positive 1. We tidy up this bracket, so we have x squared. We have negative x and negative x, so we have negative 2x. And then we have plus 1. So again, we multiply them all out. So x squared is multiplied by everything in this bracket. Negative 2x is multiplied by everything in this bracket. And then positive 1 is times by everything in this bracket. We then collect our terms. And we end up with this. So if you can now pause the video and spend 2 minutes working through the we do. here is the answer for the we do. Make sure to mark it in green pen or correct it if you've got it wrong. So now this is the first time that we've seen a negative x coefficient. So this is how this one's different. So let's look for it. Exact same again, times the first two brackets together. So we have the first terms times together to give us x. We have the outer terms times together, so we have positive x and negative x, so that will give us negative x squared. We then do the inner, so negative 1 times by positive 1, which gives us negative 1. And then we have negative 1 times by negative x. So it's basically negative 1 times by negative 1x. So the negative 1 times by negative 1 gives us a positive x. Again now we times everything in the second bracket by minus x squared, everything in the second bracket by positive 2x, and everything in the second bracket by minus 1. We then have to collect our terms. Now again, this is why I said it's important that we remember the symbol or the sign before our term. So we have negative 3x cubed, not 3x cubed. Yep. We have negative 2x squared and positive 6x squared. So if we have positive 6 and negative 2, we'd end up with 4x squared. And once we've collected all our terms, that's what we end up with. So if you can pause the video now and spend 2 minutes working through the we do. We should be getting faster at this now. Okay, and here is the answer. Again, make sure you're correcting, marking with a green pen. Well done if you've got it right. If you've not, what is it that you've not noticed? Have you got the sign wrong maybe? And here's another example for us. So again, just like when we said if we square something. So yes, when we have x plus 1 cubed, that means that we're timesing x plus 1 by itself twice. So we have x plus 1 times by x plus 1 times by x plus 1. So the format is exactly the same. We times the first two brackets together to get this here. We can then collect our two x's here, two positive x's, to put 2 plus 2x, positive 2x. We then times everything in our second bracket here by x squared. So it gives us x cubed and x squared. We then times everything in the second bracket by 2x, which gives us 2x squared and 2x. We then times everything in our second bracket by positive 1. So we get x and positive 1. We then collect our terms. So we should be getting the hang of this now. If you can pause the video for me and give the we do a go. Good luck. And here we are. Here is the answer. Does anyone notice anything interesting about the coefficients here, the numbers before each term? If you notice, we are figuring out the cube of x plus 3. What do you notice about these numbers? The coefficients are actually cube numbers. You may come onto that later in your school life. So now I'm going to give you 5 minutes to see how many of these you can complete. So if you can pause the video and work through these. And here are the answers for the first 4. So some worked examples we got here. So your answers are the bottom lines where they have been simplified in their fullest. Make sure you're marking these in green pen. And here are our answers for the next 8. So again, after the equals sign. How did we do?